Give it a few minutes to go. All right, Mr. Barry White, what's the word?
What's going on, Greg, man? Pleasure to be here with you, brother, man. I appreciate you for taking time to get with me at 6 p.m. On Tuesday. That's unheard of. There's virtual after workouts.
Anytime we can get Barry White Jr., we make time. We clear the schedule for that. So pleasure's ours, my man. Appreciate you taking time. Excited to kind of have you on the podcast. I've selfishly had the pleasure of getting to work with you almost 3 years now. So excited to be with you, to kind of host you, but also have you share kind of all your expertise and knowledge and journey with our listening audience.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to this.
So hopefully, I know you're an avid fan of the Square Pizza podcast, just like millions of other listeners across the globe. So everybody knows we like to start with hopefully some fun kind of introductions or icebreakers, if you will, to kick us off. So context here with you, you're obviously a celebrity, which most people know. You've also met Kevin Hart and Steve Harvey and/or like been on their shows, so also celebrities. So I think the first question here is, which one is funnier, Kevin Hart or Steve Harvey?
Okay, so you put me on the spot there. So first I gotta say this. My real answer is I gotta say both, right? I gotta say both equally funny, but
politically correct. Politically correct.
But I might need to go back on this show. But look, put a caveat. There's no Kevin Hart without Steve Harvey. So Steve Harvey's OG, you gotta pay the respects. But I'm gonna roll with Kevin Hart, and this is why though. Just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna roll with Kevin Hart because when I did the Kevin Hart show, his TKO, Total Knockout Competitor show, I didn't realize until after I actually saw the episode that the whole time that I'm going through the obstacles and trying to get through to the finish line, he was roasting me to the ground. Like, he was burning me up. I mean, he was flaming me so bad. Like, I wouldn't
You couldn't hear it when you were running through everything, right?
Huh?
You couldn't hear all that when you were like going through the obstacles and everything else.
No, because you get the crowd, because I got the crowd go, oh, like back, cheer my name. So I couldn't really hear him. I knew he was saying something, but I couldn't hear him. So as I'm going through it and I watched the episode, he was cheering like, bang, the coach is getting the best of him. Like, he's winning. Like, bang, what happened to the handshakes, man? Like, he was going crazy. And it was just hilarious, man. I mean, so I definitely got to roll with my boy Kev on that note.
Number one, I love how you paid respect to the old head, Steve Harvey, and I think Kevin would probably appreciate that too. But number two, maybe tell the people real quick, like, we'll get into your background as a teacher, but how did you end up on these two shows?
Yes. So when Steve Harvey show, that was just, such a pleasure, man, a treat. The reason why I even got there was my babies, my students, right? Scholars, however you call them in school. They did something extremely special, allowed me to, share a moment with them and what they brought, just as far as building a relationship, an authentic relationship that I got to this day. They DM me and email me and we chat, and we just did something special that, the world connected to and was able to relate to, not necessarily because of the action, but the concept behind it, which was simply every single day, you should always take some type of moment, whether it's a couple seconds, couple minutes, just to have that one-on-one unique, special interaction with each student individually, right? So
you're talking about the handshake video that's viral, right?
Yeah, talking about the personalized handshake video that we went viral for, and through that, it led me to multiple avenues, like from Today's Show. Steve Harvey people reached out. So when they reached out, that was a big deal because there's multiple shows reaching out. But, when Steve Harvey reached out, I'm like, man, listen, this is my OG, like the original King's Comedy, like my African-American brother. Like, I gotta support.
King's Comedy, which was filmed in Charlotte, which not a lot of people know, like, unless you're from Charlotte or like you're avid listener or like a big fan of the show.
Exactly, 100%. So he reached out, man. Well, his people reached out, and then, that was a no-brainer. So, flew me to Chicago, got down there, I was just like, hey, look, you got videos of my kids, you got pictures of my kids. Like, I can, like, hey, I'm off, the kids. So they did a great job, man. Shout out to the producers there. And then, the Godfather himself, like Steve Harvey, I mean, show so much love, brother. I mean, literally, you're behind the scenes. It was just like, we were just talking like how we talk. Like, it was just, natural people. Like, he was giving definitely gems and, highlighting the work that, we do overall as teachers, period.
Yeah.
Not just me. And, man, they gifted me with some special things, man. They gave me a signed LeBron James jersey from the championship season, 2016.
Yeah.
And I still got that hanging up.
That's
and
cool.
tickets to go see LeBron. I went to see LeBron, live, him and Kyrie in them days, so that was some good days, man. But then, it gives me, some funds as well that I put toward, just make sure my kids have a lot of good resources, a lot of fun things. We continue to have fun in our classroom like we do it on a natural basis, man. And then from there, they just get the spiral effect, kept going. And then Kevin Hart, the producers reached out for that show. And
what was your first kind of like reaction? Like you're obviously a teacher, you're a humble dude, you're a good dude, you're teaching, you're doing your thing, the video's getting love. Then like you get an email either from your CMS account or your Google account, like Steve Harvey producers want to reach out. Like, what, do you think it was one of your boys playing a trick on you, or like what's the first thought coming through your mind?
This is unreal. It was unreal. I'm like, nah, this ain't serious. This is not serious. But automatically, I'm like, this is spam. Like, why does that spam folder? Like, it's that's somebody that came through. But then when I looked it up and looked at the little tag, the links they had. I said, oh, this is for real.
Looked official.
Like I said, it was just so exciting, man, because I knew overall, not just for me and my parents, but just that my students was gonna get put on that platform. Like you can't. I couldn't go anywhere without them being behind me or showing some screen or their face or their move, like Dexter, the Trinity, to to all of them. Like, frankly, it was just something special that I knew that their parents were gonna be screaming and yelling because they texted me and all that. We saw my baby on it, like Steve Harvey show, and they sharing it, man. So it was just it's a great feeling, man. Once they settled in, like this is for real.
Yeah,
like,
I bet.
Like wow, it was just something special, man. I'm glad I got to share that, with me and my babies.
That's so cool. All right, so we're gonna get to more professional stuff in a minute, but in terms of personal, we did some stalking about you, like all guests we have, and there's a nasty rumor going around that you love The Office, and so want to know, number one, if this rumor is true, and two, if so, what is it about The Office you love so much?
Listen, when you speak of The Office, to me, you are talking about the top 2 shows of all time.
What's number 1? Or what's the other one then?
The Office, first of all, it's top 2, and Office is not number 2. It's number 1. So I'll make it clear. But it was a healthy debate. I'm going to say healthy. A healthy debate between The Office and Friends.
Ooh.
I'm landslide The Office, like by far. Matter of fact, give me one second. I want to show you. Give me one second.
Go ahead. It's your time.
I'm going to show you something. Hold on. Let me just show you what I got.
He stopped his video screen, so that means he's about to do something wild for everybody that's listening right now. So the anticipation is definitely building for Mr. White at the moment.
I thought I had it. All right, that's okay. I thought I had it, but that's okay. Oh, hold on a second. I thought I had that thing. I left it. I'll actually, the funny thing, I left it in my office. But my so the first gift I went to my office. It was like the last week. So this is like going on the 4th week of school.
Right.
I went to my office, and on my desk was a card. Right, it was a card envelope, and it said, "Mr. White." I opened it up, and why was it? Matter of fact, I think I took a picture, man. I sent you a picture. You can maybe highlight.
Yeah.
I opened it up, and it was a card of Michael Scott saying, like, "You're the best boss." Like, dude, I was so happy. I'm gonna show it here, but I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, like, it was a card.
Yeah, that's for real.
Yeah, that's Michael Scott.
Yeah.
So that shows you my love of The Office, man. Like, you cannot listen. I'll get into any debates when it comes to The Office in any season, and I'll give you the exact season, the exact episode that's gonna win any and everybody over.
So were you like an early adapter to the show? Like you watched it as soon as it came out? Like did you get put onto it later? Like how did this become to be a love affair?
Mm-hmm. So I pretty much got put on after college. So one of my friends just they just told me, yeah, man, so check this out, and I didn't really pay no mind to it. This, it wasn't after maybe like 2 years after that, that's when they cleaned house. Like, it won all the awards and all that. But I ain't really paying mind. So, I dipped in that. And I actually sat down for a weekend. It was spring break. And I just started watching The Office, man. I mean, from the 4th episode, I'm like, oh, I'm in. Bro, I'm telling you right now, I'm a grown man. I'm probably as tough as they come. Two times in my life that I got really emotional over a TV show. It was in mid-season, and I'm not going to ruin it for anybody who hasn't seen The Office, but
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it? Okay, you got to get put on. But mid-season, something happens, right? That's emotion for all the Office fans. They know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And then the last episode, the finale. Dude, I was in like...
So you're not talking like sadness, like legit tears, like tears coming down your face.
Not tears, but it definitely had me emotional. Like, dog, I'm so over. Like, I needed this. I need this finale. I need the closure. But yeah, man, I'm a huge fan, dog. Michael Scott, Scott Stotts, my man, Dwight, Jim, and Pam, like Stanley. Like, listen, man, I eat it up. I eat it up every day.
I'm so glad to know that our stalking is paying off with good insights like this. So I guess, like, as we enter more into like who you are and also teaching, you mentioned being a teacher. Obviously this year with COVID is a year unlike any other, and think like you've also transitioned to a new school, I think, with additional leadership. So kind of tell people like what you're currently doing now and just like how the year is being an educator in a school building or in a computer screen, supporting students given all we're facing this year.
Absolutely. So just so people who don't know, so I currently, I'm a former 5th grade teacher at Ashley Park Elementary. One of the best experiences.
The park.
Ashley Park Elementary, the park. Still always have piece of my heart. Now I transitioned from being 5th grade teacher, literacy teacher there, to the dean of students at University Park Creative Arts. For some reason I love the parks. It works out that way. So I'm at University Park now, dean of students, and I pretty much just wanted to take on a leadership role that would extend my reach. So, as a teacher, 5th grade teacher, I pretty much, my range was my 3 blocks, my 3 classes that I had. We departmentalized: math, reading, science. So those 80 students, that was kind of my range, and I could, maybe touch 4th grade, 3rd grade. When I see them, I can pretty much collaborate, with those grade levels. But, I just felt like, I just want to extend the reach to where, I have freedom to hit any and all grade levels, right? So now, dean of students, I'm able to not just, I'm not just restricted to one grade level. I get the whole school. I get to dictate. I get to, be innovative. I get to create things that incorporates everyone from K to 5, right? So that's what I do now as far as leadership. There's pros and cons for everything, right? So I guess one of the pros, and can be seen as a con, is that, of course, in this space, this virtual environment, remote learning, I came into it, I have a group, it's called the Dean Group. So all of the deans that became new deans, all my buddies from my Queen University leadership program, principal program.
There you go.
Became deans. So I got a group, and I tell them all the time, like, this was a great year to do this. Like, because, and I say that sarcastically because, real learning on the job training. So, and like, as in a traditional setting, if I came into it as this role, I would have a lot of coaching. Here's the structure. Here's the protocol. All right, we do this, we do that. But honestly, everybody's learning as we go along. So the principal, assistant principal, we're kind of, figuring out, making it up as we go along. So it's not a set blueprint for me right now.
I imagine too, like knowing you a little bit, like it also allows you to like use some of your creativity and your willingness to innovate a bit more, and your ability to connect with the kids in the way you do in person, taking that virtually, where maybe if we were all in a more traditional setting or more traditional school year, I don't know your boss, but maybe may not get that level of willingness to innovate the way you can now, since we're all kind of starting from square one.
Absolutely, man. That's one of the pros, because the reason that's how when they brought me in, they told me specifically, look, we need 2.0. Like whatever we did last year, we need 2.0. We need a new life. Like we need you to bring in, that freshness, because they, looked me up, saw my background, so I did MC Hart.
Talk about putting the weight of the franchise on you, know. You can score, need you to rebound, need you to lead the team in assists.
My dad been joking. My dad joked with me like, yeah, man, they bring you in, but they bring you as rookie, but they expect you to take it to the championship from the first year.
That's right.
But yeah, I embrace all of that, man. I love just that responsibility and that that's the I guess the access to and willingness to allow me to be creative. Like for example, start off with a bang, open house, virtual open house. I created a whole website. I had different things. I had all teachers do flip grids. I had them, embed their open slides under the flip grid. So now on the website we got videos of teachers as opposed to pictures or just something standard. Right. We just bringing it together, like just utilizing the different platforms that's out there as far as the virtual tools go, and just bringing that in. Because while this is not the ideal way for education or educating students, there is something to be said about pushing education forward in the technology space.
Yep.
Whether it's little or this big or however you want to size it, there's something to be said about just moving the dial when it comes to utilizing technology, because that's the way we're going anyway. Right? That's the way kids are going anyway.
And would you say that's been one of the biggest surprises? Are there any other positives that you've seen come from this over the first few weeks of virtual learning?
Mm-hmm. So yes, absolutely. So that would have been one of the big, definitely one of the big surprises, watching teachers, because regardless wherever you at, what country in, teachers are resilient, man. We'll find a way. We always want to find a way to adapt and make it work. Just getting to be able to go into different Zooms. Like we adopted a curriculum called Caring Schools that focuses on social emotional learning. So that's my big push this year. Focus is ensuring we hit that part. And I go into one of the Zooms, and on the actual curriculum, it was written for traditional based learning. So it had something like something with, I guess, peer learning or something when they collaborate with each other. On the screen, I walk into the classroom, the teacher is on the screen making animal noises, doing charades with the kids. She is making it work. Like, she's adapting that and really pushing. And all around, I'm watching, throughout the building, people just make it work. And it just showed the resilience, and that's the amount of, effort and love that comes into, like, at the end of the day, it's about the students, right? So you give us whatever atmosphere, environment we're in, is not ideal. We're going to push for it to be better. Yep. But at the end of the day, we're going to do what it takes for the students. I'll tell you one thing, quick little tidbit.
Yeah.
That, my Instagram was a big surprise, because I was, unsure how it would go, especially with, new students, like whether that's K through 2. Like, so the parents just enrolling for the first time.
Right.
And I was quite surprised, man, during like a pickup, a parent had came to pick up their supplies for their kindergarten. Right. So I came out there in Milwaukee, got them everything they need. Okay, went back. They didn't move. So then I went back to check on them, and it's a family, so a mom, grandma, and then the kindergarten. Yep. And they was just in there, just looking at each other and just the smiling. I'm like, hey, did we forget something?
Yeah.
I'm like, what else? I'm like, what else do we need? And the mom's, oh, so sorry, we just having a moment. Like, my baby's in kindergarten, like, going to school. Like, it didn't matter, man, that it was virtual, that it was, and it was and remote, didn't make a difference.
Just taking a moment. Yeah.
Going to school. Her grandbaby was going to school. And that's what mattered the most. Continuing to appreciate those moments that we got, because nothing is promised, right? So it was just something special, man, that reminded me of the why we do this, and the why, and that was powerful for me.
That's a great point, I think, too, and I want to get to the why in a minute, but also just like as we think about the future of education, like, I think it's pushing so many educators like yourself in schools to just think so much differently, right? And like, unfortunately, we've been forced to with a very short runway, but then also makes you think like, how can learning still take place outside of a school, even if we quote unquote go back into a building, right? Or how can we leverage relationships with families via Instagram or via Zoom to hop on and help them through their homework or help them through something else, even just thinking outside the four walls of the school. And so I think what we've been seeing is just the most innovative schools and educators are just thinking not as like a short-term gap, but how can we continue on this for the next 20, 30, 40 years of public education?
Absolutely, man. I would 100% agree with that, especially on the parent engagement piece.
Yep.
Like, a lot of times we were, I won't say handicapped or short-handed under this misguided belief that, we schedule, a family night on this day at this certain time, and we only got a certain amount of parents because other parents had to work or they worked the third shift or something like that. Whereas now we know we can still bring them in from their home, right? We can bring them from wherever they're at. We can invite them to Zoom gatherings, Google Meets, host live streams.
Yep.
We can do these things and, open up the chat box, comment box, and allow them to still take part, because we have a lot of parents. This is a misconception, but we really have a lot of parents who want to be a part, like who want to help, who want to, be active, who want to be around, who want to be really embedded in their child's learning and whatever's going on in education, but they also are working their hardest to provide and put something on the table. So when we bridge that gap, right, like bringing it to them as opposed to them having to travel to a school, like, think about some people, a great thing we did, man, together, shout out, to Greg and the company and everything, SchermCo, is how we had the lift codes, right? Transportation for parents who couldn't get to the school when we did family nights. Right. So that's like something we're thinking about, barriers that are in play. And I think the biggest thing that you kind of mentioned was that this is kind of exposing the inequities all around. Like COVID-19, remote learning, and I'm not just talking about academics, right? I'm talking about the transportation piece, the food piece, right? Food resources, things of that nature. And we're getting to see now, like, people push for those things and take it serious. Right. And now we're coming up with ways to, combat that and really make it, equitable for all families all around.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, even unfortunately too, just like the health disparities, right? I think if you look at who's contracted COVID, it's been largely minority populations and under-resourced communities, and just access to testing to even know if they have it and how to respond to it. And then just living conditions as well. So to your point, I think it's, maybe not for educators in the space like yourself, but either people who have tried to ignore the fact, or just been blind to it, that it's all connected, right? And if there's inequitable access to education, there's likely inequitable access to jobs and food and housing, and it's all connected, which is why lifting this up, but fighting for equity in all these areas is so critical.
Absolutely, man. I'll tell you one moment that kind of solidified, well, I'm going to continue to solidify as I go through, but my choice of joining University of Park Creative Arts is the first week. Like, after the pickup, they got the academics. Okay, here's your resources. Then the very next day, we had Food Harvest Bank come. Yep. And they unloaded a truck of food, and we, provided, hundreds of families with, nourishment, resources like, to whether it's vegetables, to fruit, to canned goods, to meats, like all of that. Like, that was a focal point. That was something that and then it started pouring raining. And we was at, like, I saw our principal kick her shoes off, and she jumped right out there in that rain and was loading the truck, and we all followed it and jumped behind her. Like, it was a powerful moment, man.
Leadership 101, right?
Leadership 101, man. Actually, the Department of the North Carolina Public Education actually posted a piece on it. So we was part of their rollout for the first year of school, and they contacted me and they saw the piece, and we're featured on there. It's a picture of us doing that, but it was just, like you said, going back to, it's not just academics, right? So that's not the only focal point. It's everything else that comes along with that, man. So that's a definitely amazing point that you just hit on.
That's great. And like, going back to the why, like who you are as a person, but also like why you're still in a classroom or in a school building, right? I think it'd be easy from maybe an outsider to say, like, Good Morning America, Steve Harvey, viral YouTube, good looking dude, speaker. Like, why is my man still teaching? And so if I just ask you that, I know you probably get that. Like, well, why do you tell the people?
Yeah, man. So here's the thing that I usually tell a lot of my peers. My why never changes, right? It becomes, I just redefine it. So, so it just continuously is adding to it why I'm doing this. So it might have started off with, I just wanted to have an impact on one, right? So I started off 17 years old, Clemson University, Easily Projects, doing an internship and had my own class, social studies class, and I taught no more than 7 students, knew nothing, had no teacher toolkit, right. But I left that program. At the end of that program, I had one student, Devon, who was one of our tier 3 friends, right? Or special, right? So, his mother came to me at the end of the banquet, and just 17 years old, just told me, man, yeah, Devon's shy. He likes to, behavior sometimes. But I'm gonna tell you, because even if he's not, that he said, Mr. White's his hero. He wants to be like him.
Wow.
Now, I'm talking about New York kid. They got my fitted, got, white tee. I'm like none of my suits. I ain't got none of my suits. I ain't got none of that. So, that was focused on me getting in. And then as I continued to got in and I continued to go, then it became, I'm getting to, I have the keys to my own classroom. I have a chance to give these students an experience in a moment that they won't forget. They might forget one novel that we read in the beginning of the year, and they might forget, what this metaphor is over time, but what they won't forget is how I treated them, how I respected them, how I poured into them, right? And how it was reciprocated, like when another adult, and with and going further, with an African-American male, right? So in front of them. So anyway, so that was one of the whys I'm going to the classroom. And then now extending even past that, okay, now I have a platform, like kind of what you said, like, okay, now I have a platform. Now I'm able to have a voice. May have access to these resources. Okay, now I want to widen my reach. Now I want to reach more than just my class. I want to reach a school. Like my ultimate goal is to have my own school, right? So that, or be a superintendent, is one or the other, but I will reach one of those. So it's like,
maybe both, probably both, right?
Probably both, right? So exactly. So it just being redefined. So I just understand the purpose behind of who I am, what I represent. Every day that I wake up, every day that I come in the classroom, every time I'm smiling, every interaction, every pound, fist pump, handshake, all of those nuances, small nuances matter in the long term and like in a longer sense in just that moment. So I'm just consistently and constantly redefining my why and just adding to it.
I mean, it's great, man. I think for so many reasons, like being in the space, doing the work, staying in. I think maybe it's just an age thing too, but probably I think we see a lot of people maybe in our similar age demographic who might just put in a little bit of work over here and then like kind of have that experience. Either they think their why changes or they're just telling themselves it changed, like go do something else that maybe is a bit quote unquote more attractive or more sexy. But I think really understanding who all of us are as people and what gets us up every day to follow that why, I think what's is so powerful about your story.
And to add on to that, what you were just saying, brother, and this is also something that's driving me. Like in addition to what I just said, I want to show people like that you do not have to be boxed in, right? So
why not do both, right?
Barry the teacher. Okay. Well, Barry the teacher also was on this show, competed in this show. Barry the actor teacher. Barry the podcast and teacher. Like we don't have to do one thing, right? So we can reach multiple guests. Our talents, we can expand and reach different audiences that doesn't necessarily have to be in that industry, right? We can utilize our platform and our talents and then take it and expand it while still keeping that same love, right? So even if I was to go to different industry, my love and for passion, education wouldn't change, right? I'll still be tied to it in some manner or some form, but yeah, just breaking that whole mold, man, of just being boxed in. Like you've seen this in 2020. It's and like so many people, whether it's celebrities you want to talk about, or idols or powerful historical figures that have their hands in multiple pots. Like that's okay. They're not allowed to be boxed in, and that's one thing that I want to relate to and transfer over to my students is that you don't have to be one thing. Like you don't have to pick. We do the whole thing. What are you gonna be when you grow up? I want to be an astronaut. Cool. You can be an astronaut and a guitar musician, or and a veterinarian if you want. Like you can do multiple things. It might not always come at the same time, but you don't want to just limit yourself because society says you can only pick one, right?
Yeah, it's such a good point. I think, going back to what you said earlier too, around like representation and not only, being put in a box, but also, our team has been fortunate to work with groups like Profound Gentlemen who are working to recruit and retain male educators of color across the country, knowing that really it really holds up across many states, 2% of teachers, give or take, in any state and across the country are male educators of color. So I guess we'd just love to hear like your biased opinion, but there's a lot of research obviously to back this up that we've seen too. But like, in your opinion, why are Black male educators so important in this work?
Well, just similar to what you were saying, man, earlier, it simply boils down to the one is multifaceted, but the one just the representation piece. Like there's not my whole thing with being in education and doing what I do and being and continually driving to do what I do at a high level is that I want to show little boys with black and brown of color and girls of color that there are people who look just like you doing exceptional things. Right. Like there's not a like these images that you might have seen or might thought was our ceiling is not actually feasible. Actually, is laughable to certain degrees. Like we are so much more than that, and just driving that example and being that figure, being that role model. It sounds cliche, but it's real, right? And it's needed because they're not. This is a female-dominated industry in education, period. And so when you do get your educator, your black male educators or educated color, or male educators, wherever you want to put it, like there is a unspoken sense of responsibility that that we hold and we come to. Like whether or not you want to be it, you are it. Like you are that figure, you are that role model. For they were watching everything you do. They let me know when I missed a loop in my belt buckle. When I got my suits on and stuff like that. Like they're paying attention. Like I had students that came in fifth grade. Actually, Park, you met a few of them that came dressed in a black tie, had a little white shirt. It said, "Yeah, I'm Mr. White today. I'm Mr. White." Like it's just little things that stick in their mind, that get excited, that matters long term, right? And it's just seeing those positive images and those lights that now if you're going past the teacher, there's reputation in administration, right? So there's walking around. And it's not just the stereotypical, PE, no offense to PE, they do a phenomenal job of keeping people health and wellness, but it's also in the core classes, also in your administration. So you're seeing it consistently, and that plays a part in the psyche, of students, especially that are so impressionable at that young age.
I think it's so important, and I think one thing we run up against our work too, but also that we always try to advocate and communicate and either push back on these or build off them, whichever way you want to go, is like one is that male educators of color aren't just good for male students of color. A lot of research shows and experience shows they're good for all races, all genders to have exposure and diversity in different leadership. So I think that's an important piece we always talk about too. But also the second piece we lift up, and I think PG does in a lot of education, is that male educators of color aren't necessarily a panacea themselves. They can't just walk in and they have all the content knowledge. They're great teachers just because of their skin color. There's still development that needs to take place like any person, but it's representation in addition to the development that then often makes them really good teachers. Is that true, false? Like how do you respond to that?
Absolutely, man. So I'm also a part of, I did a conference, Teacher Hart Out, conference. And one of the questions that we was talking about, we was debating on what panel we're going to do, what topic we're going to be. And it was on males in education, right? And it was diverse, Caucasian, Latino, it was diverse, a lot of us. And we were just talking about how, we had a conversation about how, there is or used to be, hopefully is starting to weather away, but the stigma of, you have a male educator or male educator of color, however you want to put it, the disciplinarian. We're going to send them the trouble kit. That's their job. I made sure, hey, listen, from the beginning, that's not the role play. Like I'm going to relate. I'm going to help restore the practice. I'm going to help, guide students in the right way. But I'm not just a disciplinarian. Like I come in the classroom, and kind of to what you said, there's still things that I have to learn. I have to start continuously build my teacher toolkit. Right? I got to learn pedagogy. I got to learn teacher moves. And I learned all this through trial by error, right? So my first couple years, my first 2 years at Ashley Park, to me, were just disastrous when it comes to management.
So like classroom, like for you as a classroom manager, as like a content delivery, like where are the gaps?
So both. So my first year,
both. I appreciate your vulnerability. I'm
gonna be completely honest because a lot of people they see the polish now and they go, and show a superstar teacher, and that's great and all, and I appreciate that love. But this was a lot of work to get here, like to this point. True. So my first year, man, was a rude awakening. So I black male in that, I'm walking in, got my classroom, got my my first babies. I'll never forget Alicia, Jordy, and all of them, Daniel, all of them, Jamarion, like all these good people. And boy, they was giving me the worst. Now the boys are rocking, they're fine.
Right.
The females is giving me the worst. And like it was hard to manage because I was trying to manage and still deliver the content, but I was doing it fidelity. So we had a script. So I'm new. So I'm learning like, okay, do I use the script? I'm learning over time as I was going through and continuously adding, working on my craft that I had to get a balance. So the student, if it's one thing students know is authenticity, right? So they know when this is not, you're not feeling, when it's not true. So anytime that I hear, any teachers that I'm leading now, or they're referring to a script or curriculum, I always say, listen, take it and make it your own. Like, take the meat of it, and then you put the bow on it, put the presentation, however it is, that you deliver it, because it feels natural and it feels good. And when it feels natural and good to you, the students receive it in a better manner. So I learned that over time, making my first 2 years, whoa. Like I used to call my coach like every day, like, I don't even know. Like, give me some tips, give me some. I was that guy at office every day. Hey, feedback. I need it. And then it just got comfortable, man. I learned, as continuing to build my toolkit, I got comfortable with teaching like anything. Yep. And I learned how to manage. I learned how to, stay even keel. I learned how to provide consequences in a non-offensive or abrasive way. Like just all these little things that matter, right? Yep. So that led to where I am now, where
that's great.
It's easy. It's secondhand nature to me now.
I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. I think like a few responses, like from me being a teacher too, was like, I think one of my first coaches was like, everybody sucks at the beginning. And so like, not that the expectations were low of like what the kids deserve, but also knowing that there was going to be a lot of feedback and work that needed to get better. So not to beat yourself up. Mm-hmm. But the second thing is too, is like I played sports growing up and in college. And I never received less feedback from something that mattered than when I first started teaching. We're like, playing football every day, you practice, you watch film, and you like get yelled at for missing the tackle, for taking a wrong step. And you like, depending on your coach, would get called some few choice words. I'm now in charge of the education of 90 high school kids. I'm getting feedback once every 3 months, unless we have like a special coach situation in our school. So you think about it, it's like, how can this job be so important, but like the cycle of feedback is so long? We're like 6 months ago, I was getting cussed out for missing a tackle. Now I'm like not even really getting looked at of like given the responsibility of educating these 90 kids. So that feedback loop to me, it was always so curious that it just doesn't exist as much as maybe it should in education.
Absolutely, man. We have a saying, me and people in my program at Queen's University, feedback is a gift. Yeah. Like it's a straight gift. Like Courtney will tell you, like my coach at my former coach at Ashley Park Elementary, that first 2 years at that door, I was at that door in the morning. I was at that door before she left. Like almost till she like, I don't have nothing for you today, Barry. Like she just ran out because I knew, like you said, I played sports too, basketball, and I knew the only way I was gonna get better is learn about foul.
Is that what made you so comfortable? I always think about like, was it sports that made you comfortable with feedback and seeking to get better, or was it just like maybe the environment they created, maybe a little bit of both? But I think it's interesting how some teachers, really just other professionals, are more interested in feedback than others in different parts of their career.
I think it was a combination, but I would say for me, more so my basketball my sports background. Yeah. I'm conditioned to be a competitor, yep. and in education, I'm not competing with anyone or competing with students or other teachers. I'm also competing with myself. Like, yeah. How do I get better to provide a more efficient experience or instruction for these students? Like, how am I going to continuously get better to make them better, right? So that drive alone is what kept me up long nights. Like, it's not for everybody. Like, just practice self-care, practice healthy habits, of course, and leave the work at home. I mean, leave leave your work at school. You go home, things of that nature. But I just wasn't one of those people. I needed to get better. I needed the next day to be better. Like, it drove me, and I just came from the competitors. Like, I had to win. Like, we lost. Okay, let's look at it. What we do. What's the new plays? Yep. So that's how my dad raised me. My dad, my mom. So that drove me to want feedback. But then I look in hindsight, looking back, because I got the opportunity to see other people get feedback in my later years and see how they took it. And I always come to them and I'll tell them this Roman story, like, listen, I literally was doing X, Y, Z, and they go, wow, you did that? Or I'll say something that they were thinking, but they didn't say. I'm like, because I went through that, and I'm telling you, bro, it seems like a lot now. It's like, dang, every day I got some people, every something else. I'm telling you, on the back end, though, it's going to pay off so much because you're going to be equipped to deal with, this situation, that situation. You're going to know, and it's a thing. Like it's not about knowing everything. Yeah. It simply comes down to knowing where to go, to get the answer to what you need to know. So it's really, that's what comes down for me, man. And that's what the practice that I kept with me throughout, all my years of teaching, and even now into administration and what I'm doing.
Well, I think professionally too, I've seen, like growing up playing sports, it's always, maybe not create like a safe and comfortable environment for feedback, but I think it's just a part of the process. But there's also like an understanding, everybody on the squad, including the coach, no matter what they say to you, you're trying to get better to win as a team, where sometimes professionally, in my professional experience, that baseline understanding isn't kind of created across the organization. So if I just come at you with, and I don't know you, like we've never worked out together, we've never worked together, and I just start hitting you with feedback without kind of that common understanding or that culture being built, I think that's when humans start to get defensive. With sports, it's maybe an easier understood outcome around championships or trophies. Things like schools or organizations outside of school, sometimes that foundation isn't built to give that feedback and have that trust.
I agree, man, 100%. And it comes back to the fundamental purpose, which is relationships, right? Yep. And that's a word that sometimes get beat like a dead horse, but it's real. Like there's no way around that. There's no other way you can put it. Like it comes back to building a fundamental relationship that comes with, that provokes trust, like amongst individuals, and just assuming positive intent, right? Yep. But also you need to be it's not only that, but you also need to be in the right mindset to receive that feedback, right? So you need to have a certain type of mindset already instilled, or be working on some type of growth mindset that, okay, I'm susceptible to some type of constructive feedback, because I know like it's only going to make me better. Right. Because you got people that the nicest people in the world, I've seen the nice people in the world, they want to do so great, they're cheering you on, you're complimenting you every day, and as soon as they give you feedback, it's push back and you deter because you're not in space to receive that, right? So it works both ways with the person providing the feedback, taking time to build that relationship, to learn that person, to build that trust, but also that person who's receiving it to have that type of open mindset and want to get better, right? And want to get better, not just for themselves, but for their students, because that's what matters at the end of the day. That's right. So, is those two combinations coming together and then what you get is a great recipe for success.
Yep. Man, we could talk to you for a while, and I think obviously those kids at Ashley Park, but also now at University Park, I know you're creating good kind of just avenues and spaces for them for feedback, but also for growth opportunities. But want to get you out of here and hopefully a few rapid fire fun questions.
Okay.
So first one for the audience: what is, based upon your experience, what's one actionable thing they can do by the end of the week to help improve public education?
To help improve public education, well, we talking on like the legislative level or just local level?
You take it wherever you want. Wherever your mind's at. What should the people know and do?
Gotcha. Well, I'm gonna try to be relatable. So, or just on a local level, I would say, one, take the time to practice self-care. Like take a second, take a breath.
Watch The Office.
Like you just honestly just take it in to allow yourself to relax. And then I would say Google, like do some research, look into that next platform or that next program or that you like the resources out there. They're constantly on, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, teachers sharing different resources or things that they're doing, and actually look into that, right? Because I know there's a whole movement. Nothing's going to replace in-person learning, right? We know that. That's 100%. But as of right now, while we're not interfaced to go back in school, I have two options. I can just consistently complain about it and allow this moment that I get to try to be innovative, try something with my students that hasn't been done to pass, or I can kind of take the lead on that and go, okay, let me at least try. Let me at least try.
Control, right? Yeah.
So what can I control? Because we are eventually going to shift back in school. I know that's coming, but that's going to be in partial learning, sooner than later. Right. And we get an opportunity to, get back and show our natural talents in the classroom. But at this moment right now, why not use it as a learning opportunity? So I would say just go and you look up different platforms that benefits to your teaching style, whether that's Padlets, that's quizzes, whether that's what's called it Zoom Meets, or that's if you're utilizing screencast, Screen-O-Matic. We got Nearpod. That's so great. That's so amazing.
Okay.
Like it's so many things out there that we can utilize.
That toolkit, right? Sounds like you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like just add to your school kit. Because this moment is gonna, to some degree, is gonna pass, right? So we're gonna get back to school, and there might be a few kids that chose to do remote full academy, so that's fine, and they'll be doing remote. But then you will have other students that are partial virtual, and what are you gonna do? Like, you still have to make it engaging, entertaining, like find a way to pull them in, and just utilize it. So I would say definitely lean into technology. If I was sum that up, I would say to help and help improve public education would be to lean in technology. And just from a local level, of course, we know we got to get legislation and laws passed, and we got to increase teacher pay. We got to increase the equitable resource that's around. Those things we got to do. But what we can control right now, by the end of the week, is lean into technology.
I like that. That's great. And perhaps the most important question: what does Square Pizza remind you of?
Square Pizza reminds me of. Let me see. I would say the Papa John's I ate last night with the square cup, but no, it's not. That's not it. I would say Square Pizza reminds me of. Let me see. I want to say, and this might sound weird, but I want to say a base. I want to say a base. What's it called? A base. Yeah, base in baseball. And the reason why I'm saying that is this, and I'm connecting this.
Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready for this.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, because of course the base, the shape of the base, I get that. But it's, for me, it's steps, and it's steps that we gotta take to get back to home plate, right? So we're in this virtual space right now, and we may have bunted. It feels like we're bunting every time. Like we're not hitting home runs, we're not getting all the way around, but we're bunting. And
playing small ball, playing a little bit of small ball right now.
Playing small ball. So it might be T-ball. It might be T-ball. So we're playing. So
coach's pitch. It's not coach's pitch yet. Yeah.
It's not coach's pitch. So we might, we hit first base. Okay, we had it hit us. We reacted. We got to second base, right? So that was the end of it. We're making the best we can of the end of the year. Now we at third base, which is this phase we're in now, and eventually we'll be back to home plate, man. To where we're back in school. We're back. It will be a new normal, but at least students will be in front of us. We'll be able to have more of an in-person impact. Yep. So that reminds me. Square Pizza reminds me of that. I hope I made all the Square Pizza fanatics, proud with that answer. That's what I got.
That's definitely the most creative answer we've had. I'll give you that. So you got that going for you. Did you guys eat Square Pizza at school growing up?
I did. Well, I preferred it. Yeah.
What we're learning through asking this question, amongst other things, like it's regional. Like we had a guest from Milwaukee who was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like we don't have Square Pizza in schools. I had it in Ohio. Obviously they sell it. They have it in North Carolina where we are right now. So it's interesting. Not every public school kid had access to Square Pizza. So how lucky are we?
And remember, I'm from Queens, New York. So I grew up in Queens. So we had it there.
Right.
Like public schools. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Barry White, man, we appreciate you. We're going to link all this stuff so our audience can connect with you. But thanks for taking time. Thanks for who you are. And thanks for joining, man.
Absolutely great, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me, brother.
Appreciate it.